I'll be back.
So, he's back. Trump has had a wild 4 years. He lost the election in 2020.
Losing is never easy. Not for me, it's not.
Survived an assassination attempt. Worked at McDonald's, worked as a garbage man, and then became the president of the United States again.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump has won the presidency.
Some people obviously are not taking it very well. And it's honestly a real shame that we're not going to get 4 years of this.
So I said, can we do something about the color of the lid?
Oh no, what a big loss. I wonder why she lost. Now, this is a very interesting election, not just for American citizens, but even for people outside of the US. A very seminal election, dare I say. I think this will force the Democratic Party to change or die. I think it will have a massive impact on the global order. And if you're from India, you should really be paying very close attention to these elections. Why? Well, that's what I'm here in this hotel room to talk to you about. So what's interesting is that the US elections that just concluded were considered very, very close by pretty much every single opinion poll. And just like someone's Instagram photo and their driver's license photo, the reality was quite different. Donald Trump ultimately won a very, very convincing victory with nearly 300 electoral college votes, clearing the 270 majority mark quite easily. Now, Trump's victory in 2024 is actually a very significant achievement for him because this is the first time in a very long time that a Republican has actually won the popular vote. Remember in 2016 when Trump ran against Hillary, who was a very unlikable candidate, she still won the popular vote against Trump. The other thing about the US elections is that there are usually 6 to 7 so-called battleground states, which are considered purple. In some elections, they turn blue for the Democrats. In some elections, they turn red for the Republicans. So it is generally believed that in a tight race, whichever candidate wins these battleground states will ultimately win the election. Just like for India, if you win Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, you have a pretty good chance of winning the general elections. And what's incredible is that Trump won every single battleground state. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. Remember that in 2020, Joe Biden won most of these states, which helped him beat Trump. So Kamala Harris, in fact, performed much worse than Joe Biden did against Trump in 2020. In fact, Kamala Harris's performance was so bad that she did not outperform Joe Biden in any area of the entire United States.
So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
How bad of a candidate do you need to be that a corpse who can't speak in complete sentences performs better than you in elections? And the same corpse actually left a pretty interesting message for Kamala Harris.
And they say I'm the retarded one. The Democrats said that I was too old, that I was too slow, that I was a joke. Well, here's a joke for you. What do Willie Brown and the 2024 presidential election have in common? Kamala Harris blew both of them. I shouldn't have said that. But seriously, I mean, first Hillary loses to Donald and now Kamala. This man has beaten more women than Doug Emhoff. Anyways, congrats on losing to Hitler again. I hope he locked you all up this time. Thank Brandon out.
Now, there's some actually really interesting and some might consider surprising information coming out from the results of these elections. Remember, for about a decade, there's been a narrative around Trump that he's a flaming racist. But the same flaming racist won 45% of the Latino vote, which was an improvement by 14 percentage points compared to the last election. Trump won nearly 15% of the black vote, including 25% of the African American male vote. Interestingly, the Indian American community, which has historically leaned heavily Democratic, also showed a shift towards Republicans in 2024. A Carnegie Endowment study revealed that a number of Indian Americans identifying as Democrats dropped from 56% in 2020 to 47% in 2024. Support from Donald Trump among Indian Americans increased from 22% in 2020 to 31% in 2024. In fact, some exit polls claimed that as many as 45% of Indian American males voted for Donald Trump. And the Indian American shift towards Donald Trump is a very interesting phenomenon because there's some very prominent Indian Americans and Hindu Americans that are actually part of Trump's inner circle and might get some very lucrative positions in Trump's cabinet. For example, Kash Patel, a former national security official in the Trump administration. He's been part of Trump's inner circle for a very long time. Trump has also pushed the idea of installing Patel as the deputy director of either the FBI or the CIA. Kash is also a staunch supporter of the reconstruction of the Ram Mandir in India. Another person is Vivek Ramaswamy, a very prominent supporter of Donald Trump. Ramaswamy gained a lot of popularity among Republicans, particularly young voters and immigrant voters. He's also someone who is very proud of his Hindu roots and someone who doesn't feel the need to abandon his culture in order to get ahead in American politics. Like somebody else we might know, like blue-blooded Christian American Bobby Jindal. And for that, I respect him massively. Trump has also called Ramaswamy smart as hell and hinted at offering him an important role in an administration, saying that we can put him in charge of one of these big monsters and he'll do a better job than anybody you can think of. Reports suggest that Ramaswamy could be offered a key position in Trump's cabinet, particularly in departments like Commerce, Homeland Security, or Health and Human Services. Tulsi Gabbard, who's also a Hindu-American congresswoman from Hawaii, has been a very big coup for the Republicans because she used to be part of the Democratic Party. Her views on non-interventionism in the international arena seem to have really influenced Trump and his international policies.
In why I endorsed President Trump over Vice President Kamala Harris, it is because of those fundamental rights and freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution and the words that our founders had for us in this country as Americans, our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
And then, of course, there's Usha Vance, the wife of the Vice President J.D. Vance, who's going to be the first Indian American and Hindu American Second Lady of the United States. So this is a very interesting development because this could be a sign of things to come. Many minority communities like the African Americans, like the Latinos, and looks like even the Indian Americans have made a bit of a shift from their traditional voting party, the Democrats, towards the Republicans. The question that remains to be seen is if the Republicans will be able to capitalize on these gains. Will they be able to hold their more nativist, their more sort of racist members at bay and really be able to integrate these people into their party and turn them into a really strong, reliable voter base? So now let's talk about the question you have on your minds, which is how the hell was Trump able to win so big when all the polls showed how close the election was going to be? Well, Kamala Harris ran on the platform of abortion, saving democracy, whatever that means, and the high cost of living. All three of these didn't seem to really resonate with the voters that strongly. Many voters linked the current cost of living crisis with the Biden administration, obviously, since they are the ones who have been in power for the last 4 years, and by association, they also link that with Kamala Harris, who was a very integral part of the Biden administration. Voters were able to see through the fact that Kamala Harris is promising to fix the cost of living crisis after being an integral part of the administration that caused the cost of living crisis. You can't complain about the smell in the bathroom if you're the one who had explosive diarrhea in there 10 minutes ago. And what was ironic about Kamala's campaign is that her campaign banked heavily on the woman vote, but she ended up getting only slightly above half of the woman vote. In fact, less women voted for Kamala Harris than even Joe Biden, who got 57% of the female vote in 2020. In fact, Trump got 53% of the white woman vote, which means more white women voted for Donald Trump than for Kamala Harris. Now that has to sting. Nearly 40% of Latina women also voted for Trump. Now we'll talk about the big reasons behind Trump's victory. So let's talk about what Trump said that really resonated with the electorate compared to what Kamala said. Let's look at the big issues in this election. According to major polls, the biggest issue in this election was the economy, which nearly 40% of the electorate considered their top issue. After that, the next big issue was immigration, with 20%. Crime was also a big issue for many voters, and in fact, abortion and climate change were much lower down the pecking order for a lot of people in the American electorate. Many voters are worried about the rising cost of living, making it one of their top issues in this elections. And voters obviously tend to blame the current administration for creating this problem, and they hope that even if they don't like Trump, at least he'll do a better job than the current administration in fixing the cost of living crisis. Under Biden's administration, inflation rose significantly, making daily expenses like food, gas, and housing quite costly. Since 2021, cumulative inflation increased by about 19.3%, outpacing wage growth, which has risen by 16.1% during the same period, which is why high-income households with incomes more than $100,000 per year leaned more towards Democrat, with a 9% increase in their vote share, whereas lower-income and working-class households with incomes below $100,000 leaned more towards Republicans, with a 12% gain on margin for the GOP. And again, what was more surprising was that for a lot of women as well, abortion was not their main concern. It was actually the economy. Many women prioritize issues like inflation over abortion rights. Abortion rights, while important, simply didn't sway votes for Kamala Harris like her campaign had hoped. And what's crazy is that Donald Trump actually performed better with young women in 2024 than he did in 2020, which means more young women voted for Donald Trump in 2024 compared to the last election, despite the huge push that the Harris campaign made towards getting young women to come out and vote for her. Clearly, the girl power message was not enough. Another big issue, like I said, in this election was immigration. And Kamala Harris, who was made in charge of the border by Joe Biden, had a massive stigma against her when it came to immigration, because under her watch, illegal immigration increased rapidly in the United States. The US border officials record, quote, encounters with migrants. These include people who have attempted to cross the border illegally and people who tried to enter legally but were deemed inadmissible. These encounters have risen to record highs under the Biden administration. Since January 2021, when Joe Biden came to office, there have been more than 10 million encounters, whereas under the Trump administration, there were 2.4 million encounters on this border. And this chart will show you the difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. A spike in crimes is also associated with a spike in the increase in illegal immigrants. In 2023, the illegal immigrants were allegedly responsible for 33,000 assaults, 3,000 robberies, 6,900 burglaries, 7,500 weapons crimes, 4,600 sex crimes, 1,600 kidnappings, 1,700 homicides and murders. And so many Americans felt like the Democrats were not taking the immigration issue seriously enough. In fact, rumors were spread by people like Elon Musk that the Democrats were planning to move large number of illegal immigrants into traditionally Republican areas, getting these immigrants voting rights, and then making these immigrants vote Democrat, so that they would turn all of these Republican areas into permanent Democrat areas like California or New York. And Trump's stance was he's going to put an end to this. He's going to seal the borders.
We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country.
Donald Trump has threatened to seal the border.
What was also very interesting this year was that I think this was the election cycle when the influence of the Hollywood elites and celebrities and the mainstream media was utterly and completely dwarfed by the influence of social media and social media influencers. Social media platforms and podcasts like Joe Rogan and his endorsement of Donald Trump did much more to influence voters than high-profile endorsements from celebrities like the Avengers.
Hi, you guys. Hi, Avengers.
Hey, Scarlett.
Jumping on the call.
Or Jennifer Lopez, or Cardi B, or Megan Thee Stallion, or Beyonce, or Taylor Swift. None of these people were able to convince women voters to vote for Kamala. This obviously resulted in some very interesting reactions from America and abroad. A lot of Indians were not happy with this result. They were lamenting how Trump beat another woman to the presidential post after Hillary Clinton. People started worrying about what's going to happen to Gaza. Rajdeep Sardesai said America is not ready for a woman of color president. Some people called it the death of democracy. The reactions in America were interesting.
We are fucking over.
How did we get here?
Mainstream media was not pleased at all.
Through the moment as an aging bullshit artist.
Some Harris supporters were having a bit of a day.
These Democrats that just fucking sold your goddamn liberties by running an objectively dog shit fucking campaign. Wait till you find out how much money they're making.
Late night hosts were struggling.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science.
There was also this interesting trend where Harris supporters started shaving their heads in protest. I don't know, maybe they just like the way I look and want to try that look out. So now let's talk about the other big question. What is going to be the impact of Trump's election for the US and for the rest of the world, particularly India? Well, domestically, you can expect a few things like tighter immigration policies. Voters expect him to be stronger and harsher on crime. You're likely to see more tax cuts. Trump has also promised to institute the Department of Governmental Efficiency, or DOGE, which is not cringe at all. And we will see what department is going to look like because apparently Elon Musk will get to run it. Internationally, one expects the US to be less interventionist than the Democrats. Trump in his 2016 campaign and his 2024 campaign railed heavily against the deep state, which is basically a so-called cabal of politicians, unelected bureaucrats, rich billionaires that have an oversized say on American policy. This deep state was accused of overthrowing the democratically elected Bangladeshi government and installing an Islamist puppet regime in its place in order to destabilize the Indian subcontinent area and particularly India. Internationally, it's going to be very interesting as well. Trump is committed to a great alliance between India and Israel. Trump is also committed to ending the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine very, very quickly.
I will have that war finished and done and settled before I get to the White House as president-elect. I will get that done.
And let's talk about the impact on India. Now, Trump's America First policy is not just a catchphrase. He will want to prioritize American industries over everyone else's, which sounds great for the US, but for other countries it could mean high tariffs are coming. Trump has already hinted at introducing a reciprocal tax system, which means that he wants other countries to pay the same tariffs that the US pays on their products. And this could impact India, especially industries that are highly dependent on the US market like IT, pharmaceuticals, and textiles. These sectors could face major challenges if Trump decides to turn up the tariff heat. Trump's America First policy could also mean restrictions on immigration, and as well as restrictions on the H-1B visas through which most of the Indians live in the US. During his first term, Trump put restrictions on the H-1B visa. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar even admitted that negotiating with the Trump administration on immigration policies was challenging. This could increase some friction between India and the US, as India will want the US to increase the allowances for legal, high-skilled Indian immigrants and reduce allowances for illegal, low-skilled immigrants from Latin American countries. Another point of friction between India and America could be cybersecurity, internet, and intelligence. The Trump cabinet will likely include Elon Musk, who has been very aggressive about entering the Indian market with Starlink. However, a major competitor for Elon Musk and Starlink in India is Ambani. India would prefer its internet independence and would rather work with the Ambanis than with Elon Musk and Starlink. But it's not all negative. In fact, actually, most of what people are expecting to happen between India and the US is positive. See, Modi and Trump seem to have this kind of a bromance. Modi was one of the first people to wish Trump, and Modi was one of the first world leaders that Trump actually spoke to after his win, where Trump emphasized that the world loves Modi, India is a wonderful country, Modi is a magnificent man, and he also emphasized that India and America are true friends and will look out for each other. Trump has also openly praised Modi on many occasions.
Somebody was threatening India. I said, let me help. I'm very good with those people. Let me help. I will do it. I will do it. And I will do anything necessary. We've defeated them for hundreds of years.
We had a great time in India. It was an incredible 2 days, and he's a great friend of mine. I am a big fan of Hindu, and I am a big fan of India.
The positive development that as soon as Trump got elected, the first three leaders he spoke to were Modi, Netanyahu, and Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. Now, this is very, very important because all of these countries are key countries in the India, Middle Eastern, Europe corridor, which is the alternative to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, or the so-called New Chinese Silk Route. This corridor will provide Europe, Asia, and the Middle East with an alternative to this Belt and Road Initiative.
The Indian Middle East Europe corridor, or the IMEC, will connect the East Indian corridor to the Gulf region, and the Northern corridor will connect the Gulf region to Europe.
It will be the most direct connection to date between India, the Arabian Gulf, and Europe,
where these countries and the rest of the world plans to completely eliminate their dependence on China and its Islamist allies for the movement of goods and services between their countries. This will be a much more collaborative trade system and trade route for the world as compared to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is completely run by China, and thus all other countries participating in the Belt and Road Initiative are beholden to China's whims and fancies, which is like being in a trade partnership with Joffrey from Game of Thrones. The Belt and Road Initiative, in fact, has already bankrupted many countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Zambia.
A lot of countries which opted for it took the loans, were not able to repay the loans,
Right.
and now are having to cede their territory. So there's economic strangulation there. This is a very different thing. Here the countries participating are the countries who can afford to put something on the table.
And Trump seems very committed to this project, and that is a very positive development because so is India. And this corridor will be massively mutually beneficial to both India and the United States. The US is also already moving towards their policy of China plus one, which means basically diversifying their supply chains so they're not so heavily reliant on China. Trump has already threatened high tariffs on China, and if that happens, American businesses will look to move their manufacturing away from China, and this could be very good news for India. This strategy could mean more US investment in India's manufacturing sector, potentially making India a major player in global supply chains and a major competitor to Chinese manufacturing. Remember that under Trump, India and the US had also significantly ramped up their defense ties, especially through the Quad alliance, which Trump was a big supporter of. And apart from just defense, geopolitically also, Trump will be better for India. Remember that during the campaign, Trump tweeted and spoke up for the Hindus of Bangladesh who have been suffering under the Islamist regime installed by the American deep state. Trump and India had a good enough relationship that he tacitly supported India's abrogation of Article 370. He tacitly supported the passing of the Citizenship Amendment Act. He raised no hue and cry during the farmers' protests in India, whereas every other Democrat politician was furiously live tweeting about it. If they spent as much time on their campaign as they did tweeting about the farmers' protests, maybe they would not have been thrashed by Trump so badly. Trump was also pretty anti-Pakistan because he saw Pakistan for what it is, a dangerous, radical, terrorist leech. He scaled back aid to Pakistan massively during his presidency. And if India is able to work with Trump, we might see increased pressure on Pakistan once again. So I think that while there might be some commercial challenges related to the H-1B visa, strategically, a Trump presidency is overall better for India than a Democrat presidency. Trump's transactional nature makes him easy to understand and potentially much easier to work with than the American deep state. His personal relationship with Modi, as well as his economic interests with India, could also help smooth things along. And so I want to ask you, do you think Trump is better for India or a Democrat president is better for India? Why do you think that? What do you think Trump brings to the table that I might have missed? What are you most excited about? Let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Other than that, please become a member on Patreon or a member on our YouTube. I will see you for the next episode. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy. I will see you next time. And to all of you, a secular pranam.